What's your favorite color? Who's your favorite author? I don't even know you. I am your father. I didn't get the chance to welcome you to this world. I feel all the pain, I carry all the shame. There was nothing I could do to get you through this. It kills me inside.
Okay, and that will be particularly because of the kind of rights that they're talking about here, which are not the same rights as they're talking about in the current Constitution. We'll get to that. Okay, and not only do they have to look at the natural and prescriptive rights, but they only have to as far as practical. And I heard on RT where I made this point, 5 hours later they had a lawyer on saying, well, everything's as far as practicable. But it's not. One thing we proved in O'Donoghue and Sinnot and other cases was that the rights in Article 42, the right to education and the right to help with parental failure, have no limits according to resources. The state can never back out of them on the grounds of, well, we don't want to spend the money, or we don't think we have the money, we have to keep our pensions and things like that, so we can't. The children come first in our Constitution, and it is not, there is no get-out clause in the current one. But we're giving the government a get-out clause in the new wording, as well as having the government directly doing the rights, no matter if a parent fails or not. All children at all times. Okay, we go down to the next one. In exceptional cases where the parents, regardless of their marital status, fail in their duty towards their children in such extent that the safety and welfare of any of their children is likely to be prejudicially affected, the state, as guardian of the common good, shall by proportionate means, as provided by law, endeavour to supply the place of the parents, but always with due regard to the natural and prescriptible rights of the child. Now, what's very interesting about this, I'm working very closely with a group of lawyers. 2 of them are constitutional experts. And all of them, the first time they read this, they said, oh, that's the states indemnifying themselves against lawsuits. The states get-out clause when they continue their neglect, because obviously they're going to continue their neglect. So now you can take them to court, but now you won't be able to, right? Because they will make the judgment of if it's likely to cause damage. Of course, if they neglect somebody, then they have the get-out clause of, well, we didn't consider it likely to cause problems. So they raise the bar on their own liability. Okay? They also, and we'll get to what this means, they also don't have the best interests of the child there. So when they talk about their responsibility, there's no best interests of the child. Right? So they can't be judged according to the best interests of the child. But as we will see, parents are going to be judged according to this formula, the best interests of the child. But also, they only have to help children by proportionate means. Now, what does proportionate means? Doesn't that sound good? It sounds like, you know, it's in proportion to the problem. No. Appropriate has a legal definition, and appropriate means appropriate to, effective to the need of the child, or effective to the need of whatever has to be appropriate. But in fact, appropriate is only used in relation to children in the Constitution. So by appropriate means, so in other words, what does the child need? The parent is failing. You look at the child, and you base the help you give on the child's need. You know, not on some report or not on some government policy, on the child himself or herself. Here it's proportionate, and proportionate comes from an EU principle that's in the treaties called the proportionality principle. And the proportionality principle goes like this. A government has many, many responsibilities. It's got to keep the forests growing, it's got to keep people in jobs, it's got to take care of children, it's got to, you know, whatever, keep farmers farming, whatever. So they look at all their responsibilities and they look at their budget and they look at their obligations under whatever laws, and this says, as decided by laws, basically. So they're very much part of, the government laws are the ones that have the majority votes in the Dáil, so they set the laws. And their response to the child in the face of parental failure has budgetary considerations, it has to be balanced against all their other responsibilities. Whereas right now in the Constitution, nothing else matters. What the child needs is what they're supposed to give the child. Nothing else will help the child anyways. And we often see this in disability. They set a policy, a proportionate policy of, one child might need one-on-one, another child might need whatever, another child might need an operation. But they have set policies that all children are stuck into, regardless of what they actually need. Okay. Now, so they've limited their responsibility, and they've grossly limited their liability to be caught out for their neglect into the future, which shows us that they're not planning to change. And anyone who thinks that they're turning over a new leaf, just remember 6 weeks from now when the budget comes out. It will be probably as anti-child as the other budgets were. This will probably be the most anti-child budget of all. And I include in that probably the return of college fees, etc. Okay? 2, provision shall be made by law for the adoption, for the adoption of any child where parents have failed for such a period of time as may be prescribed by law in their duty towards the child and where the best interest of the child so requires. Now, when it comes to parents, we bring in the heavy guns, which is the best interest of the child. And this sounds really like best interest of the child. Every parent, that's what's written across our heart is best interest of the child. But this isn't that heart response. This is a legal formula that comes from the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the best interest of the child, by definition, is decided by the state. It's not decided by families. It's decided by the state. And 20 years ago, we ratified this very quietly, without any fanfare, and I think illegally because it should have had a referendum because it contradicted our Constitution. But they did it nice and quietly 20 years ago in September, and ever since then, the best interest of the child has been increasingly put into HSE policies, etc., and it is the key phrase in our in-camera courts, which are the secret courts in Ireland. In-camera means that no one can talk about it. But there, parents are constantly up against the best interests of the child, and the best interest of the child is whatever the HSE representative, social worker, or community nurse, or whatever says it is. And there are some wonderful ones that actually understand family life, etc., and there are a lot of them that don't and are tearing apart families. Families who have done no crime. And I knew nothing about this till I became an MEP, and constituents started to come out of the woodwork. And I wound up in an in-camera court with a mother whose breastfed baby had been taken from her at 7 weeks. 3 days after the GP had given a glowing report about how well this mother and baby were doing, the baby was taken away. She got the child back at 2 only because the child was so damaged. Couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't feed himself at 2. They gave her back her child. She left the country. So I can say a little bit about that, but I know about 6 other cases. And in every case, one mother did need a good level of support because she was second generation of no mothering, because her mother had her children taken off her.